Okay, you guys ready for our first guest? All right. Woo! Our first guest is a Columbus rock institution, one of the founding members of the band WATERSHED.
Yeah.
The subject of this hit book, Hitless Wonder. Also, he's got an amazing solo career, a host of other bands that he heads up. He'll tell you all about them in a minute. He has the coffee shop Colin's Coffee in Upper Arlington. Anybody been there? Can we please welcome our first guest, Colin Gawel.
Yeah. I wanna rock and roll all night and party every day. I wanna rock and roll all night and party every day. I wanna rock and roll all night and party every day.
How about that introduction, Colin?
That was great. Little Kiss, first band, Kiss Alive, my first record. That's pretty much right when I got Kiss Alive, I decided I was just going to be broke the rest of my life, and I was only 6. and I love it. It was the best.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's so much to talk to you about. First of all, are you relieved that you don't have to perform tonight?
It's the first time I've probably ever not had to perform. Like, you know, usually you do like tours or whatever, and radio, you at least got to play a little bit. I'm like, you sure you don't want me to play? And Johnny's like, for better or for worse, he's like, nah, why don't you just talk? We got mojo flow. You just talk. So.
See, I remember it. You were like, do I have to play?
Yeah.
No, you don't.
No,
so it's a pleasure to have you. First of all, let's start with what's going on. What something happened today?
Well, the band I play in WATERSHED, we've been around forever, right? We started. Yeah. And we started. And Joe wrote a book. You can actually literally read a book about it. It was a best-selling book all over the world. And it's a lot of it's about Columbus, but it's a really great book.
How many people read this book?
If you haven't, you got to read it.
Yeah,
I didn't write it, and it's like won a bunch of awards. It's really good.
You really need to read it. It's great.
It's a great book. So anyway, we put out a new single today, our first thing we've done since the book. And then if you're a fan of WATERSHED, it's a producer who worked with us, who's kind of crazy. And then we put on some old tracks that Willie Phoenix produced our first single. And there's some stuff on there from us playing CBGBs back when we were like 18 years old. So we just had that come out today. And in the modern world, you put things out, you pre-order it. And I'm happy to say, like, we did a little Kickstarter thing. We hit our goal in 5 hours.
Really?
So I don't know. We don't try to do that as a money grab. It's just a way to get your music out and, you know, kind of cover expenses. So it's pretty exciting. Today that just came out, the news hit. So we got a really good response. People were really into it, and it kind of ties into the book. If you've read the book, it's got some cool things.
It's awesome. I remember when this book came out, and I'd run into you at Colin's Coffee, and you would say, you're Colin, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure. No, maybe there's a Colin in the back somewhere. But you were
People ask that all the time.
I know.
They're just shocked that anyone's their own business. Nobody does that. Like, how many Colin's Coffees are there? I'm like, unless I can clone myself, just one. And like, you're Colin? They were like, you're Colin? Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, do you get more attention for being Colin of Colin's Coffee or Colin Gawel from WATERSHED?
They're totally separate things. Nobody cares at all that you write songs really at the coffee shop or you have this band or career. You know, it's really, it's separate. You know, you're just a coffee guy, you know, which is great. You know, I'm there every morning and it's regulars and you talk and you chit chat and all that stuff. And I've been the owner for 10 years, but I've worked there for 20 years. I've been on and off in there, so it's a long time. So I kind of just keep them separate. There's no point in explaining, like, you know, you're in a band, my brother's in a band. He plays the, you know, you writing your own songs? Yeah, I've written a few, you know. Yeah. There's a book if you want to read it, really, it's all in there, you know, so, but.
You know what I love about this book is that when you read this, and it's a great, it's a great depiction of a local band who really hit it big for like a hot second in the 90s. Mm-hmm. And what it takes to do that, the sort of things that happen to like undercut it, how it falls apart for a minute. You are like the Huck Finn of Hitless Wonder. You are a character. It's really awesome. I love that you are this character in the book that sort of like does, you know, you're the rebel. You're the rebel character. There's this moment in the book where you guys are in New York City, and you're supposed to play for these execs, and you guys have this plan. You're going to play these songs in this particular order. you take one look at the room and you're like, no, we're changing the order. We're going to do it this way. And everybody kind of freaks out and they think, oh shit, here goes our record deal, here goes everything. And you choose to play this song and it works. Tell me about that moment. What were you thinking and how did you know that the plan was wrong?
Well, you know, when you're like 23 or 24, you know everything, right? You know, at that point, you're not going to listen to some guys that have a bunch of money invested in you. What do they know? But, you know, in the moment, if you've played a lot of shows and you've been out doing a lot of shows, one of the advantages of getting out of your comfort zone, not music, just in life, we've done a ton of touring. And I remember sizing up and saying, this doesn't feel right, it feels dishonest. Yeah. And if you play something dishonest, it's going to come across that way. And this is like everybody's there, like Kurt Loder. It's like the moment, right? And like the guy who ended up signing us, Richard Griffiths, he flew in on the Concorde. I mean, it was one of these kind of deals, right? And it was just, you know, you're young, so you don't think about, you know, what's going to happen beyond that. But I remember just saying, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to play this ballad first, and then we'll play the set. And it wasn't anything more than just, you know, something in your heart doesn't feel right, so you have to just stick to what got you there. And it's easy to say that now because it worked out. Otherwise, I'd be the biggest idiot in the history of the world. And it was a good song. So,
yeah, it was
great.
Yeah, so it was great. You did the right thing, and you put us on the map in the '90s.
Yeah. Did you get to talk to Kurt Loder? Did you get to talk to Kurt Loder, Colin?
No.
Did you ask about remote control?
No.
You guys remember remote control on MTV?
They were partying hard on remote control, but I didn't ask. But you know, it's this kind of thing when he walks in, because you know, one thing about being from Ohio, you're always Ohio guys. Like no matter where you are, you're always like, is that Kurt? Oh my God, it's Kurt Loder. You know what I mean? Like, is that Quentin Tarantino? Like you're always starstruck. Like the same way, like anytime you see a mountain taller than 1,000 feet, you're like, that's amazing. Because you know what I mean? There's just like you know, you just don't you don't get a lot of scenery, so you kind of appreciate anyone who's kind of a star or a mountain or a body of water bigger than a lake. You're like, that's pretty
beautiful.
awesome. You know,
beautiful.
like that's part of being from Columbus.
So speaking of water, and do you know what a watershed is?
No, yeah, that's not important. You know, we were young, right? And we started playing when we were like in 5th and 6th grade, right? We started our band before we went and saw Cheap Trick and came home and said, we're going to start a band. And we're going to get signed to Epic Records. We didn't know, I'll write songs, we'll just write some songs and we'll play. So we started doing that. And then we started coming down, we grew up in Worthington, we'd come down and play campus when we were underage, right? So we're playing campus. And eventually, and we're terrible, and everyone's underage. Bars love terrible bands for everyone's underage. So, and we're sneaking in, and eventually we all come to Ohio State, whatever, and Willie Phoenix, who's one of my all-time favorites, you should have an
Willie Phoenix.
Right? He decides, he sees something in us, and he's a main character in the book too, and he's like, I'm going to produce your first record or tape or whatever. And then he's like, I think you should switch your name. We're like, what do you mean? Our name's The Wire. That's our thing. He's like, dudes, there's already a band from England called Wire, like there is, and you guys are terrible, and every bar in the city knows you just packed the place with underage kids. So someone said Watershed. I was like, you know, fine, that's good. And we had something, although it's not a very internet savvy name, because if you Google Watershed, you're going to get like Chesapeake Bay Watershed.
Well, funny you should say that.
Yeah, so, yeah,
funny you should say that, because we did Google Watershed.
Yeah, we figured no one knows what the fuck a watershed is.
Yeah.
And so let's take a look at this video.
All right.
What is a watershed? Is it a shed that holds water? Nah. Try again. A watershed is all of the land that drains into the same location or body of water. People tend to think only of water bodies such as rivers, lakes, and wetlands as being part of their watershed. However, any land, whether it is park, farm, forest, school parking lot, and even the soil we build our homes on is also included. Think of a watershed as a funnel, collecting all the water within a specific area and draining into the nearest body of water. Drop by drop, water is channeled into soil, groundwater, creeks and streams, making its way to larger rivers and eventually the ocean.
All right, there you go.
Everyone in the world lives in a watershed.
There you go. That's what a watershed is.
Watershed's important.
So,
Watershed.
yeah, I mean, that obviously, I mean, doesn't that make you want to drink beer and get laid? That's totally wrong. We went with Watershed. We used to have this thing. It was like it's an occurrence, a change of time, and this is how old we are. This is like before the Berlin. We're like, oh, that'll be it. So our banner had Watershed. It was black and white, and we only wore black or things on stage. So it was always like a watershed moment. That was kind of our connotation. I don't love the name, but we wanted to keep it vague enough that we didn't know what kind of band we were going to be. We were really young and stupid. We could have turned into anything. So, that was kind of what we went with, and that was kind of our deal. And, people are always jealous of other people's band name. Like, if I could go back, I was always jealous of a punk band called the G-Spot Tornadoes. But,
So glad you said that, because we have a sex therapist as one of our guests.
Yeah, you know what I mean? What a great band name, but it probably wouldn't have worked for us.
The G-Spot Tornadoes?
Yeah, I remember just seeing the flyer. I'm like, oh, that's a good band name right there, Yeah, so you always write those down.
That's really great. So, okay, Watershed is awesome, but you have a number of other bands. Let's talk about them really quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I do my solo thing, whatever, Colin Gawel, you can always find
And the Lonely Bones.
Lonely Bones, and I just put out a best of album that came out. I try to record and do
right
that
here
outside of Watershed. When Joe's not writing some hit novel, I have to find something else to do. So that album came out, and I'm real happy with that. And then and I have a band called Wise and Cheap Trick in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We play once a year, and
once a year, that's it.
Yeah, we play all Cheap Trick covers, and the name of the band is Wise and Cheap Trick in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You have to put it on the marquee, and we're not going to play anymore because now that Cheap Trick's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, we've noticed there's not really much demand for a band called. Yeah, they're in.
They're in.
Yeah. So you don't really need a band.
How much of that, seriously, how much of that has to do with you going up to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Museum and doing your protest performance?
Nothing really. They're an amazing band. They're my favorite rock and roll band. They're the reason I want to play music. But their fan group was really supportive. I mean, if you're in the Midwest, Cheap Trick's your band. So, we got good press, and it was a fun thing to do. And, we did our little part. But they have a huge fan support. But, it was nice. Like, The Onion would write about it, and Rolling Stone and stuff would pick it up and say there's even this crazy band that plays under that. So, and speaking of crazy bands, the other band I'm allegedly associated with, and this is the biggest band I'm in, but I'm not in it, is the Dead Schembechlers. And that's legitimately, like, you go watch a YouTube video and don't listen to it if you're easily offended. I mean that seriously. It's really, but we're talking 1 million views, stuff like that. Yeah. Crazy stuff. And that's
Tell everybody what it is, the Dead Schembechlers.
We just thought, we were with our buddy Lou Brutus, and we were out helping him with some punk rock things out of XM, and we had the idea, what if there was legitimately this punk rock band that was so obsessed with Ohio State football, but it's not funny, but you know what I mean? It's really hardcore. So we created a whole fake history, singles, websites, 45s, and we did a show just thinking it'd be fun. We all dressed up like Woody, and we have fake names, and it got a really, really big response right out of the gate, and it's I'm not gay, but how blue can we go here?
You can go as blue as you want. Now
these are the songs. I'm not saying I approve of these songs, especially if anyone knows our kids, but they're gonna figure it out. But Michigan Stadium's a pile of shit. I'm not gay, but I want to fuck Brutus Buckeye. Just things like that. And we play when we can, and it's a really great show, and it also gets picked up. So. It really is. It's a gas, and it's really fun, and it's kind of the idea of, and we kind of released it. We started the High Street riots, and we got some people in the press to buy into that. Yeah. And so there's this whole history of the band. And the website, Dead Schem, we blame Michigan for global warming, the Kennedy assassinations. Go to the conspiracy page at Dead Schembechlers. It's truly hilarious.
That's amazing. One of the many reasons why I love Colin Gawel is because he uses phrases like "it's a gas." But anyway, you're going to stick around with us
all
night? Okay, let's hear it for Colin, please. We got lots of stuff to talk about. Coffee, kids, the rest of it. In the meantime, we have a very special guest coming up in a few minutes, but let's hear from Mojo Flow right now.
Yeah.